Everyone, to another week of TFT Masterclasses. Today we're going to be talking about the best comps to play on the new patch 13.20b. So not the A patch, the new revised B patch. And come join in to learn exactly what you need to play to climb on this new patch. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So as I mentioned, we're now on the B patch. They B patched it very quick. I'll talk about what changes they made in this recent patch. We'll just talk about major changes compared to 13.19 to 13.20. And then the compositions that we'll be talking about today. Azir is back. So some of this seems very familiar to the very start of set 9.5. So we've almost come like full circle. We had like our initial starting good patch, or not patch, but like compositions, and then we went into like the bilge water, we went into the multicaster, but now we're back to Azir. So we'll talk about that. Cho'gath, but we're going to play a little bit different now. And then we'll talk about the Demacia line. There are also some honorable mentions because there are so many viable plays and viable lines of compositions to play this patch. We'll talk about that. Final tips, and then a Q&A time. So talk about major changes. If you played the past couple of days, you might have noticed a certain trend between each game. Everyone was going TF, Legend, going Pandora's on their 2-1, rolling best in slot for their multicaster board, and then just sending it for multicaster and then Galio frontline. So that has been nerfed as of the B patched. As you can see here, there's other, if you're interested in the full patch, I'll send it into this link after, like the TFT training voice channel text. But this is the main gist. Multicasters, especially TF, has been nerfed, along with Galio's Radiant item, so Absolution, his Radiant Redemption. Now it's been nerfed. Guardbreaker has a small one, and then Nico plus Invokers. Not 6 Invokers, but I'll talk about that after. So it's just like the Nico shielding has been nerfed in that composition. So nothing too major apart from multicasters and a bit of Nyla. Guardbreaker is just a small nerf. And on the buff side, we have Kai'Sa and Azir. So Azir, although the attack speed is not it's still a really good buff, but it's not huge. It's more so everything else was nerfed, or everything that was meta, like very fast-paced burst, has been nerfed. So now our slow ramping, or not ramping, just our like slow-paced compositions are now doing a lot better. Kai'Sa has a starting mana buff, so that's 2 full auto attacks in a fast-paced challengers where you want to kill something right away, get your double attack speed buff, and continue snowballing from there. Having 2 auto attacks right off the bat, like subtracted from your cast, is extremely good. Talk about the Demacia line. Sona got a big change. We'll talk about what that is. Demacia Adaptive Helm got a buff in the front line, so now it's super good on frontline units. They get extra mana once they get hit. And then support items and journal also got a buff. In terms of Legend, there are still TF players. You'll see that in high elo and just your games. However, now, so the big change that they want to do with TF multicasters is to punish players for not hitting their 3 stars. So you're no longer just stable on 2-star and able to secure top 4 with 2-star everything. You now have to 3-star everything in order to perform really well. So that has decreased the population of TF. Everyone, I don't want to say everyone, but the majority are now reverted back to Earth for our +1s. We'll talk about what they are, and Poro for standard TFT. So we'll start off with the first comp that I think is back. Azir Shrima / Strategist Flex. It's been around. It had its high points, it had its low points, and now it's back at its high point. So what is it? I'm sure you've seen this board plenty of times, or I played this game, or played this different type of compositions in your games. But so we'll quickly just run through it. It's a front to back. We have our front line, as usual. We have our backline that does damage. So no backline access here. And it's a stall composition. So nothing bursting. We're not bursting right off the bat. These fights are going to be going pretty long. So there's a couple different variations. The first one, just standard, is strategist. So this is a very common, this board at the top, very common level 7 board that you can easily get to at least your 1-star copy of it, either on stage 3-5 or 4-1. Nothing crazy, no legendary units, stable. If you hit 2-star version of this, you can easily go level 8. So we have our strategist, we have our Swain, Jarvan, Azir, and Misfortune. We're dual carrying Azir, and in this case Silco. If Virulence is our Zon mod, we pair it with Warwick. Warwick pairs with Nasus for Juggernaut, and there we have it. Slow, consistent, out sustain, and it works very well now that burst is out of the meta. Also, Rogues got nerfed again. They've had like, I think, 2 nerfs patches consecutively, so you're not in as much fear as getting jumped on by some 3-cost Graves and one-shotting your carry. If you have a +1 from Earth, from Bandle Cafeteria, from Hall of the Nine. For Shurima, you can now dive into the 6 Shurima line. Basically, you're going to Shurima your Jarvan and play around that. Renekton eventually comes out for actually either Renekton or Cassiopeia, depends like on your itemization. If you have extra like backline items, for example, like 2 extra blue buffs, then maybe you keep your Cassiopeia, but one will come out for a Cassante, and then you can just cap your board around like Heimerdinger or Aatrox with 2 Darken with Naafiri. But I would only recommend playing 6 Shurima, which did get a buff in recently on 13.20 if you have a Shurima +1. So all this, it's magic damage, right? So we need to make sure we have some form of shred. Magic resist shred, not armor. So this is either Shiv on Azir, who utilizes Shiv extremely well, or Spark on some frontline units. You can put it on Nasus. However, Nasus would prefer to have actual tank items, not just frontline damage / utility. But so either on like your Swain 2, even like your Warwick 2, but then you want to move him into the middle to protect him. But worst case, you just put on the Nasus, you call it a day. Okay, so that was this is Strategist Flex, this is Shurima Flex. There's also Juggernaut, so I would only recommend playing 4 Juggernaut if you have your Aatrox. If you don't have Aatrox, then I really don't recommend it. You could have a Juggernaut +1. However, I don't think Juggernaut Emblem is that good. It's good on melee units that are able to like survive and like do a lot of damage. However, no unit like that really fits into this board. Like the closest would be like Nyla, and then you play 3 Bilgewater, but for now I would just say only play 4 Juggernaut if you have that Aatrox, and then same thing, your other ones are Nasus, which pairs well with your Azir. Nautilus is just a good unit, and then Warwick pairs with Silco. So we have a really strong front line, we have our back line doing DPS, and then we put Aatrox on the outside. He dies and starts giving his passive to those who are beside him. So that's the 4 Juggernaut. And then the very last one, I don't want to say the last one, there's a million different ways you could play this composition depending on what you hit. Like if you don't have Virulent Zon, or you don't have blue buff Gunblade, you don't have to play Silco, you could play something else. But these are just the basic ones. And then the very last one is if you want to play around Bilgewater, and you can start re-rolling. So 3 Bilgewater, we have our Nautilus, Misfortune, Gangplank. Gangplank can also become a Nyla if you have like RFCs, if you have Giant Slayers, so there's different ways you play this as well. And then you can focus on just re-rolling your Nautilus and Misfortune for 3 stars. And then because we are playing our 3 costs now, if we get the augment 3's a crowd, which is very rarely taken, then we can even take out our Warwick and play Darius. But without 3's a crowd, I don't recommend playing Darius. There's no utility, he's just straight damage, and unitemized, he does not do that much. And if you are rerolling, make sure you take some econ augments like Pandora's Bench, Infernal Contract, something to help you actually hit your units. So that's how you play Azir. We'll just talk about best in slot real quick. So Nasus, you need to have some form of tank items, of course. I would recommend Bramble Vest, Dragon's Claw, and Redemption. If you don't have Redemption, you could go Warmogs, you can go Sunfire, you can even go Spark, and then give Redemption to someone else. But make sure that you have a tanky frontline Nasus. As soon as Nasus gets an item, you want to make sure that he is ascending. So all you have to do is take him off the field, put him on your bench, put him back on. He is now the most recently fielded Shurima unit. The game registers that he is the strongest quote-unquote Shurima, and now he will ascend, get that extra HP after 8 seconds, and some attack speed. Azir, Shiv, you need 2 attack speed items. I would say Nashor's +1. So Nashor's plus either Rage Blade, Shiv, or RFC, even like Sniper's Focus. And then your last one can be, honestly, I think Archangel's is really good because this is a stall composition. The longer the fight goes, the better. So that's how you play Azir. Pretty good right now. Yeah. Okay, our second one, Cho'gath. He's been around. He has a little bit of an adjustment. It's an overall nerf. Basically at 1, 2, and 3 star, whenever he bites, he only gets plus 35 HP. So what this means is on 1 star, if he gets a bite, he now gets 5 more than he used to, and at 3 star, he now gets 5 less than he used to. But 1 star Cho'gath isn't really going to be biting anyway. He's too small of a Cho'gath. So not a big change, but like 3 stars, just a little bit weaker. The way to play this is, unless you hit your Bruiser +1, most of the time you're gonna be playing like some version of this top board. It's 4 Bruiser because getting that 6 Bruiser Scion is not guaranteed. So you'll just be playing 4 Bruiser and then playing some form of backline, hence the backline flex. So you could either play your 3-star Cassiopeia plus an Azir, and then you could play like a Nasus or 4 Shurima, or you could play like a Kaisa, Mordekaiser, and a Naafiri, or even something like this. So basically, Cho'gath has now gone from like, oh, just frontline like damage menace to more of just like a really tanky frontline, and then you play backline units to actually output your damage. So once again, the Azir item is basically the same as I talked about the previous slides. Mordekaiser, you need Nashers. I'd say Nashers +2. What you could do is you could either do like frontline Mordekaiser or like a melee range Mordekaiser. So it'd be like Nashers plus QS, not QSS, and then +1. Like Giant Slayer is really good. And then this way you don't have any range, but the QS keeps you safe from any crowd control, which is really good because you need his uptime while he's attacking. Or you go like the range option, so like Nashers plus RFC +1. Like Giant Slayer is just really good to get through the front line. So yeah, but make sure you have at least one of these, because if you're just going like Nashers, Tooth plus Giant Slayer plus like JG or something like that, he's just not going to be attacking. He'll get stuck. So as I mentioned, it's best with a bruiser +1. That way you can get to 6 bruisers super easily without having to high roll your Scion. You're going to be staying at level 4 and then re-rolling a bit right after Krugs. So this is going to be 3-1. Roll down to a minimum of 32 gold, so then you can make 40 the next round and try to 3-star your Renekton, Cho'gath, and your Cassiopeia. This is an AP damage composition, so just like the Azir ones, make sure you have some form of shred. You could put a Ionic Spark on your Sejuani or your Renekton, or if you're playing the Azir version, just put a Spark on your Azir. So this is really good in today's meta. It's really good because like after you hit your front line, you could just play whatever you want in the back, just depending on your items. And a couple more examples are here. So once, let's say you finally like you found a Scion, or you have a +1, or both, this is better how you'd cap out your board. So 6 bruiser frontline, these guys are going to be insanely tanky. Then you can play whatever backline depending on your items, and eventually add a Heimer. Then once again with his turret, you can either have, if you're missing healing reduction, then you can go Mechano. If you're missing shred, you can go Shrinko. And very rarely are you going to need more frontline in this extremely frontline heavy, so I'd refrain from going repair. Refracto Ray got a buff. I have not experimented with it. You can if you'd like. There's no data on that yet. But that's how you play Cho'gath. So this is the second composition. Very good. Cho'gath items is the same as Nasus. So there's like 2 types of items. There's like real tank items, which actually help you like self-sustain and like keep you tanky. So this is like a Redemption. Well, technically, I guess Redemption still counts. But like Bramble Vest and Dragon's Claw, Gargoyles, these are items that actually benefit the holder. And then there's like frontline like utility items. So these are like the Sparks, the Sunfire Cape. Redemption's a little bit in the middle, but like Spark and Sunfire Cape barely makes your tank like more tanky. It's more like of an offensive item, so you don't want to be building Sunfire or Spark on Cho'gath. Make sure you're giving him the actual like true tank items, and then give your like utility items to someone else who's tanky. Okay, and the very last one is Demacia. So there's a lot of different ways you can play Demacia as well. What is it in general? It's front to back, and we're also magic damage. So you might be noticing like, oh Max, you've talked about so much magic damage. You talked about Azir, you talked about Cho'gath, you talked about like Demacia, and all these are all magic damage. A lot of physical damage compositions got nerfed recently. So like Xayah got nerfed, right? Nyla got nerfed, Graves got nerfed. And then technically, well, yes, Fiora got nerfed as well, even though she does true damage. So like there's a lot of physical damage units that got nerfed. So now in today's meta, Dragon Claw might be a bit more important than Bramble. So make sure you check that out in your lobby. But yeah, so front to back, magic damage. This, once again, a stall composition with if you're playing Kale. Quinn, it's more so just like standard. So let's talk about Kale first. Kale 3, same thing. If you haven't leveled once in the early game, if you're playing Kale, which is correct, you will still be level 4 by the time right after Krugs come in. So this is your best chance to hit 1-cost units. You have, I think it's a 55% chance of seeing a 1-cost unit per shop. So this is your time to roll down, try to hit your Kale 3. If not, then you can econ back up and then roll back down after. And you try to go for your Poppy, Alawi, and your Kale. So that is a variation you could play it. And then you can eventually add in 5 Demacia, and then either put the item on Galio or Jarvan, depending on your other items as well. Best in slot Kale is you're going to get your Giant Slayer just from having her have the Demacia item, and then is Double Rage Blade is her best in slot. So make sure that you have bows and rods if you're looking to play this. Okay, the next one is Quinn. The first one is just finalizing KL. So like we have that 3-star allow, we have that 3-star Poppy, right? This was the board from previous. We just, if you have like a Bastion +1, which is super good because we have our 2 3-star 1-cost Bastions, we could play 6 Bastion, then look to go level 9 from here, eventually swap out for Cassante, and it's super good. Infinite frontline, we have an infinitely stacking damage in her back, and very good. But I want to talk about Quinn. So Quinn, ideally you want to play 7 Demacia and have a Demacia +1, because if you Demacia your Mordekaiser, he will get a Radiant Nash's Tooth called like the Baron's Grit, and extremely good on him. And then make sure, as I talked about during the Cho'gath slides, your third one gives him some sort of way to keep his uptime up. So when he uses his ability, I think he has like 4 seconds or so to actually deal a lot of damage. So make sure you either have a QS to avoid crowd control, so he can actually start like whacking his enemies, or an RFC where he can deal damage from a safe distance. So a board like this, you could easily fit this on level 8. You want a slow roll on level 7, however, for your Quinn 3, unless you're extremely rich or have some sort of econ augment or region. And then lastly, regarding your third Demacia item, because your first one is Quinn, your second one is going to be Mordekaiser. Your third one, if you have a Galio 3, then I think it's fine to still use Absolution and then itemize your Galio. However, if you don't, then I think Radiant Warmogs plus like a Vow on Jarvan is better. Okay. So that is Demacia. Look out for like Petrocyte Shackles, look out for like reroll augments. Yeah, very good. Even though like Petrocyte Shackles got a bit of a nerf, I think it's still good, and Demacia in general is just very good. Sona, oh yeah, Sona got a change, so you no longer have to corner Sona and then like put your care that you want the attack speed adjacent. Now Sona, when she casts, she will affect like the adjacent unit beside her, and the attack speed is forever. So it will last for the rest of combat. It's not just for like 5 seconds now. So that's super good. Make sure you give some sort of mana item to Sona. And same thing as the Shurima. When you want to decide like your strongest Demacia, all you have to do is take them off the field, bench them, put them back onto the field, and now the game will register them as the strongest Demacia and give them an item. Okay, so that is all for Demacia. We'll talk about an honorable mention. You might have seen this comp. I think it's a ton of fun. It's a 6 Void reroll. So this is you playing around the Rift Herald. And since it's a reroll comp, it's super good with any econ or reroll augments or region. Basically, all you want to do is if you have a Void +1, you're going to put the Void +1 on your Talia and then slow roll on level 6 for 3-star everything. Void, your little Voidling or like your medium-sized Rift Herald, the HP and like power scales based off your Void unit's star level. So when you go from 1-star to 2-star, it gets stronger. 2-star to 3-star, it gets stronger. So by 3-starring everything, then your Rift Herald gets a lot stronger. And what you want to do is just frontline them, because Rift Herald has a charge. So then the enemy frontline will start like clumping around, more so like this. It'll start clumping around the Rift Herald. Rift Herald will charge, hit everyone. Talia will attack them because they're considered knocked up. They will also attack. Talia will also attack them during the initial knockup from the egg, and it just does a lot of damage, and it's super good. Also, it got a buff recently, and now the speed is faster when it charges, and so that's super good. If you don't have a +1, then you'll have to do this on level 7, which is a little bit more sus, because then you're spending more money into leveling than rolling, but it's not the end of the world. Items, Kaisa, Jewel Gauntlet, Shojin +1. Your +1 can be Archangel, it can be Guardbreaker, it could be Hodge, any of this is fine. And then your 3-star Vel'Koz is going to be Blue Buff, JG, and preferably Gunblade. Okay, so that is all the tutorial for the compositions that I think are going to be best on patch 1320B. Of course, this just got released. There's very little data, and the meta might change if something new is discovered. So I think that this is great. I think this is what's going to happen just based off of numbers, statistic, and like research. However, maybe someone will figure out some new tech, and then that will also become a composition you could play. As I mentioned, a lot of AD comps were nerfed. Xayah, Nyla, Graves, Fiora. Bramble Vest is not... Bramble Vest was extremely good in the Ionia Vanquisher meta to counter them, but now Dragon Claw might be a better choice based off your lobby. And then Adaptant Helm was always a viable slam in the right situations, but now it's even better, especially in the front line because of the recent buff. So that is everything for today's lesson. Hopefully you learned